Mike Mentzer's Consolidated Program is a high-intensity training workout that focuses on the essentials of exercise science, specifically the principles of intensity, volume, and frequency. It's a training program that aims to optimize muscle gains while minimizing the risk of overtraining. The primary concept behind the Consolidated Program is to achieve maximum results through the precise amount of exercise required, no more, no less. It was a concept that Mike Mentzer had been working on since the late 1970s.
In order for a training routine to be productive, it must of course stimulate growth. And once growth has been stimulated, it must be allowed to take place. This means that your routine must not be so long that it uses up too much of your body's reserve of resources merely in an attempt to recover from the workout. Bear in mind, the first thing the body must do after a workout is recover what was used up during the workout. Obviously, when you're done training, something about your body is different. Something has taken place. Things have been used up. Energy has been used up, nutrients, chemical reserves, and so forth. And the first thing your body has to do after that workout is not grow, but recover and restore what was used up. Again, this refers to the concept of recovery ability. Only once it has recovered will it grow, assuming then again that growth has been stimulated first. A perfect routine then would, number one, induce maximum possible growth stimulation, and number two, use up a minimum of the body's reserve of resources so that growth can take place once it's been stimulated. A high-intensity program fulfills these two requirements of a perfect routine. We know with absolute certainty that high intensity of effort is a requirement for building size and strength. And since a high-intensity routine must be brief, it will deplete a minimum of the body's reserves. That makes sense, as the less time you spend engaged in training, the less reserves or resources you use up.
Unlike traditional bodybuilding routines that often involve numerous sets and high volumes, the Consolidated Program emphasizes performing just one working set of 2 different exercises per workout. This approach can be particularly beneficial for individuals who struggle with time constraints, or those who have been overwhelmed by the vast array of conflicting training methods found in the present bodybuilding and fitness culture. It's important to state at the outset that not everyone has the genetics to become a physique champion, or even to build a particularly impressive physique. But this is why it's important to not waste hours of your life chasing a dream that has no basis in reality.
Well, it's kind of hard to know, though, if you do have genetic. I mean, you could. I guess you should get a signal if you've been training for 10 years. You don't see any growth.
It's something you can only accurately assess in retrospect. You won't know until you try.
Right.
So for those who are interested, try it. Don't be put off by someone telling you, well, you don't have the potential. That's something no one knows, again, unless you're looking back over a period of time. Within 2 or 3 years, if you haven't gained anything at all, either you're training improperly, which is often the case, or you have poor genetics. But then again, anybody can improve. You may not become a muscular marvel, but you can improve your muscular tone and lose fat.
In keeping with his desire for maximum efficiency, Mike Mentzer recommended performing the least amount of exercise necessary to stimulate muscle growth, which happens to be 1 set taken to a point of momentary muscular failure. This study out of Adelphi University surveyed all of the known literature that compared single set versus multiple set resistance training. The results showed overwhelmingly that multiple sets resulted in no increase in results compared to single set training. 45 studies reached this conclusion, while only 2 studies showed a marginal improvement with multiple sets, despite spending way more time in the gym. So, 1 set will stimulate size and strength increases. Knowing this, the Consolidated Program might appeal to you for several reasons. Efficiency. For busy individuals, the program allows for significant muscle growth without spending hours in the gym. Overtraining prevention. Many bodybuilders experience burnout or stagnation due to excessive training volume. This program mitigates that risk by advocating for adequate recovery periods. Simplicity. The program distills bodybuilding down to its core principles, making it easier for beginners to understand and implement. Rest and recovery. As for the frequency of workouts, Mike Mentzer recommended taking ample days off between workouts to ensure complete recovery. Specifically, he suggests training once every 5 to 10 days, depending on the individual's recovery ability. Let's take a look at the muscles that are involved in this program. The Consolidated Program consists of 2 distinct workouts, each targeting major muscle groups with compound exercises. Let's examine the primary and secondary muscle groups activated during each exercise in the program, starting with Workout A. The first exercise in Workout A is squats. The squat is a lower body dominant exercise that engages the quadriceps, hamstrings, and gluteus maximus, along with the abdominals and lower back. Here's how the muscle groups are involved. The primary muscles worked are the quadriceps on the frontal thighs. The quadriceps are the primary movers during the squat, as they are responsible for extending the knee when standing up from the squat position. Also activated are the gluteus maximus and hamstring muscles. The glutes play a significant role in hip extension as you push up from the bottom of the squat, especially when you rise from a deep squat. The hamstrings on the back of the thighs assist with stabilizing the knee and work in conjunction with the glutes during the upward phase, helping with hip extension. Apart from the primary muscles, secondary muscles are also activated. These include the adductors on the inner thighs, which help stabilize the legs and assist in keeping them aligned, particularly when squatting deep. The erector spinae of the lower back are heavily involved in maintaining an upright posture during the squat exercise and help to stabilize the spine throughout the movement. The abdominals and obliques are crucial for maintaining balance and stability throughout the squat as well, particularly in terms of keeping a neutral spine and preventing excessive forward or backward lean. And finally, the calves, the gastrocnemius and soleus, come into play to stabilize the ankle joint during the squat, especially when coming back up from a deep squat position. Other muscles that serve a stabilizing function in this exercise are the iliopsoas or hip flexors that assist in stabilizing the pelvis and controlling the descent into the squat, especially at the bottom. And also the tibialis anterior or shin muscles. These muscles help stabilize the ankle joint, preventing excessive forward movement of the knees. Here's a snapshot of the muscles involved in the squat exercise. Exercise number 2 in Workout A is the close grip underhand pull-down. The underhand grip, supine or palms-up grip, on the lat pull-down machine changes the emphasis compared to a traditional overhand grip. It tends to recruit more of the biceps, but still heavily works the lats and other upper back muscles. Here's how the muscle groups are involved. The primary muscles worked in this exercise is the latissimus dorsi, or lats, which are responsible for the downward motion when pulling the bar towards your chest. Also involved are the biceps and the rhomboids. The supine grip recruits the biceps to a greater degree than an overhand grip, as it favors elbow flexion. The biceps assist significantly during the pulling phase of the movement, while the rhomboids in the upper back help retract the shoulder blades and assist with scapular movement as you pull the bar down towards your chest. The secondary muscles worked in this exercise are the trapezius of the upper back. The trapezius works to stabilize and help retract the scapulae, the shoulder blades, during the movement, especially in the lower portion of the range. The infraspinatus and teres minor, the rotator cuff muscles, also come into play to assist in shoulder stability during the pull-down, particularly during the pulling phase. Even the brachialis, which lies underneath the biceps, assists with elbow flexion, helping the biceps perform the pulling motion. Both the abdominals and oblique muscles are engaged in this exercise to maintain trunk stability and posture throughout the movement, especially during the lowering phase when resisting the pull of the weight, while the erector spinae, or lower back, is involved in stabilizing the torso during the movement as well. Here is a chart showing the primary and secondary muscles worked in this exercise. Now let's move on to examine the muscle groups involved in Workout B. The first exercise performed in Workout B is the deadlift. The deadlift is one of the most comprehensive compound movements you can perform, engaging multiple muscle groups across the body. The following is a general breakdown. The primary muscles worked in this exercise are the gluteus maximus, or glutes, which are heavily involved in the hip extension that drives the deadlift, especially when standing upright at the top of the lift. They are one of the primary muscle groups responsible for extending the hips. The hamstrings. The hamstrings play a significant role in the deadlift, especially in the initial phase, where they assist in extending the hips and stabilizing the knee joint. They're engaged more during the lift's ascent. The quadriceps assist in knee extension during the deadlift, especially as you push off the ground at the start. They work in conjunction with the glutes and hamstrings to complete the lift. The erector spinae is heavily involved in stabilizing the spine throughout the deadlift and keeping the torso upright, especially during the initial phase of the lift as you rise from the floor. The secondary muscles worked in the deadlift are the trapezius, which are involved in stabilizing the shoulder blades and the upper back, helping to maintain posture throughout the lift. The rhomboids assist in stabilizing the shoulder blades and the upper back throughout the lift. The more you stand upright, the more these muscles will be engaged to keep the shoulders retracted. Also engaged are the forearm muscles, flexors and extensors, which work hard to maintain grip strength and hold onto the bar during the deadlift, particularly when lifting heavy loads. The abdominals and obliques come into play and are crucial for maintaining spinal stability and resisting hyperextension or flexion of the spine. The abdominals, obliques, and transverse abdominis help stabilize the torso throughout the movement. And finally, the adductors or inner thigh muscles play a minor role in stabilizing the legs and assisting with the lift, particularly when the feet are positioned together in variations like conventional deadlifts. Here is a chart showing the primary and secondary muscles involved in the deadlift exercise. Exercise number 2, dips. The dip exercise primarily targets the upper body, with a significant focus on the chest, shoulders, and triceps. Here's how the muscle groups are involved. The primary muscles worked are the pectoralis major. The dip strongly activates the chest. The movement of pushing the body upward from a position where the arms are bent helps recruit the pectoralis major. The triceps are heavily involved as they are responsible for extending the elbows during the upward phase of the dip. The dip works all three heads of the triceps, long, lateral, and medial. The anterior deltoids or front shoulder muscles are also strongly engaged during the dip, assisting with the pressing motion and stabilizing the shoulder joint. The secondary muscles worked in the dip are the rhomboids, which help stabilize the shoulder blades as you dip down and push back up. The trapezius muscles assist in stabilizing the shoulder girdle, especially in the lowering phase. And, once again, the abdominals and obliques play a crucial role in stabilizing the torso during the movement, helping to prevent excessive forward or backward lean. Here is a chart showing the primary and secondary muscles involved in the dip exercise. This chart shows the involvement of the major muscle groups involved in the exercises of the Consolidated Program during Workout A, squats and close grip underhand pull-downs, and Workout B, deadlifts and dips between parallel bars. Each bar on the graph indicates whether a specific muscle group is engaged for each exercise, where 1 equals yes and 0 equals no. For those who would like to know Mike's recommendations on how to perform these exercises, let's examine each exercise in the 2 workout routines in greater detail. Workout A, squats. Mike advised that, if possible, perform this exercise in either a power rack with strong safety pins or a special machine with safety catches, such as a Smith machine. This will allow you to focus on muscular contraction without fear of getting pinned under the weight and truly go to a point of momentary muscular failure. Here is how Mike recommended you perform squats. Place the bar on the upper back, below the nape of the neck, across the trapezius. With feet slightly wider than shoulder width and angled outward, descend in a deep knee bend fashion with your back flat and head up until the thighs are parallel to the ground and no lower. Then, immediately, without any bouncing, begin a controlled ascent to the top straight-legged position. Once you've reached the top, pause only long enough to take a deep breath and repeat. Perform one set of 8 to 15 repetitions until failure. Palms up pull-downs. Workout B, deadlifts. Mike used to tell me that the deadlift was the most productive bodybuilding exercise one could do, as it activated and stimulated the most muscle groups of the body. Dips. To perform dips properly, take hold of the handles on a set of dipping bars and press yourself up to the top or locked out position, which is the position where your body weight is supported by your arms. Slowly lower yourself down until you feel a comfortable stretch in your pectoral muscles, and then, after a brief pause, press yourself back to the starting position. Simplifying exercise. When one of Mike's personal training clients suggested to Mike that he felt like he could perform more exercises and more sets, Mike replied,
"Sir, but that is precisely how you were training before, and that is why you made no progress and were prompted to call me for counseling. You so burned yourself out with all those exercises, you dug so deep of a hole, your body never had the opportunity to recover from the merely exhaustive effects of the exercise, let alone grow."
Chronic, gross overtraining, as Mike referred to it, wherein the trainee performs set after set of multiple exercises per body part, is simply overkill. Your objective with this routine is to stimulate the major muscles of the body for the greatest size and strength gains with the least amount of exercise required. As multiple muscle groups are activated and taxed through the performance of the suggested exercises, additional exercise is neither necessary nor desirable. Direct abdominal training is not performed in the Consolidated Program, as these muscles receive sufficient indirect work through the compound movements in the two workouts. While the underlying principle of any program geared toward the development of strength and size is progressive overload, that is, making it a point to use more weight or perform more repetitions in a given exercise than you did during the last workout in which this exercise was performed, don't make the mistake of thinking your goal is simply to use the heaviest weight possible for only 1 or 2 reps. The study examined the results of 2 groups of resistance exercise trainees. The first group trained only with compound, multiple muscle groups involved simultaneously, movements such as bench press, lat pull-downs, dumbbell incline presses, and dumbbell one-arm rows. The second group performed these same exercises, but also added into their weekly training additional exercises for the biceps and triceps. According to the researchers, quote, "There were no significant differences between the groups in the percentage change before and after training. The findings of this study suggest that isolation exercises are not necessary in order to increase compound movement strength or increase upper arm girth. These findings also suggest that strength coaches can save time by not including isolation exercise and still achieve increases in strength and size." Close quote. 13 years after this study, in 2013, another study was performed that also revealed that the inclusion of single-joint exercises in a multi-joint exercise training program resulted in no additional benefits in terms of muscle size or strength gains in untrained young men. The researchers concluded, quote, "This study showed that the inclusion of single-joint exercises in a multi-joint exercise training program resulted in no additional benefits in terms of muscle size or strength gains in untrained young men." Close quote. In 2015, yet another study, published in Applied Physiology, Nutrition, and Metabolism, reported the same thing, this time among subjects with at least 2 years of training history, causing the researchers to state, quote, "In conclusion, 8 weeks of resistance training involving multiple joint or multiple joint plus single joint resulted in similar alterations in muscle strength and size in trained participants. Therefore, the addition of single joint exercises to a resistance training program involving multiple joint exercises does not seem to promote additional benefits to trained men, suggesting multi-joint only resistance training to be a time-efficient approach." Close quote. This is interesting to note when certain authorities within the fitness industry attempt to criticize Mike Mentzer's consolidation program from his book Heavy Duty 2, Mind and Body, which is entirely made up of compound exercises, as being somehow inadequate to stimulate strength and size increases, and that isolation exercises or single joint movements should be added to it. The truth is that no research studies have ever shown that single-joint exercises are needed or will develop more arm muscle in a routine that already has multi-joint exercises that involve the biceps and triceps. As Mike pointed out, everybody has a different tolerance for demanding exercise, the type of exercise required to stimulate muscle growth. Simply following some champion's routine who possesses a different tolerance for exercise than you do, and who is also taking steroids, which apart from being potent muscle builders also enhance his own recovery ability, will yield the natural trainee who doesn't share the same recovery profile absolutely nothing. This is why Mike recommended that each trainee keep a training journal or logbook. This will reveal whether or not a given volume and frequency are producing results or having a negative effect on the trainee's progress. If the repetitions and weights are going up each workout, then the trainee knows he is recovering and adapting, that is, growing muscle to whatever extent his genetics permit. If one is staying the same reps, the same weights, then his training volume and frequency is allowing him to recover, but not to adapt. This will require more time off in between training sessions. And if the trainee is getting weaker, performing less reps, or having to reduce the weights he is using, then his training volume and frequency is too much to even recover from, and he will have to reduce the volume of his workouts or the frequency of his workouts, or both. Advanced bodybuilders also face a similar problem as the stronger they get, the more demanding their workouts are, and their rest days must likewise be extended to permit full recovery and adaptation to take place. Most trainees think that only the muscle groups they are training are called upon because they are acutely aware of using their arm or chest muscles, for example, in a particular workout. However, the reality is that your whole system is called upon whenever you exercise. Mondays may be your leg day, but every day is kidney day. Answering the critics. Those who are entrenched in the traditional ways of bodybuilding, or who believe that training with higher volume and more frequency is needed to get them to the promised land of greater muscle size, have criticized the Consolidated Program as not being enough in terms of either volume or frequency to stimulate and produce muscle mass increases. Some have even claimed that they lost size and strength when using the program. On the surface, and given the wide genetic variation that exists among individuals, it's entirely possible that for some people this may have been the case. However, when you examine what science has to say about this, such claims become dubious. Regarding the claim that reducing training frequency from several times a week to only once a week causes weakening of muscles, researchers Graves et al. Found that subjects who trained 3 times a week and then reduced their frequency to once a week maintained their strength levels. Additionally, de Rene et al. Studied 21 baseball players who also reduced their training frequency from 3 times a week to once a week and did not experience significant losses in strength, indicating that once-a-week training was sufficient for maintaining whatever strength they possessed from training more frequently. Interestingly, the physiologist Brad Schoenfeld was part of a paper published in June 2021 that provided solid evidence for the benefits of abbreviated training along the lines of what Mike Mentzer advocated. Some excerpts from Schoenfeld's paper are, quote, "Several studies have demonstrated that performing only a single set 3 times per week is effective for increasing strength and hypertrophy," close quote. Quote, "Emerging evidence indicates that it is possible to achieve similar training effects by training once a week compared to a higher frequency when total weekly volume is equated," close quote. Quote, "Evidence shows that significant muscular gains can be obtained from a low training volume," close quote. Given that this paper was published in 2021, this is relatively new information supporting recommendations for consolidated training. An article from Research Quarterly for Exercise and Sport in 2023 presented a study that analyzed health data from approximately 15,000 adults participating in weekly 20-minute strength training sessions over a period of nearly 7 years. The subjects trained with 1 set to failure once a week using 6 exercises to train their whole body. The findings indicated that the participants experienced strength improvements year after year. In fact, over the first year alone, participants' chest press strength increased by 50%, and their leg press strength increased by nearly 70%. This strongly supports Mike Mentzer's position that a once-weekly strength training session can effectively maintain and enhance muscle mass and strength. As for the criticism that not enough exercises are in the program to stimulate enough muscle groups, as we've seen from our earlier presentation on the muscle groups involved in this workout, the 4 exercises of the Consolidated Program are very comprehensive.
Break away entirely from tradition and find out for yourself how little training is really required. Arthur Jones, by the way, John, said years ago that we've been asking the wrong question all these years. The question should not have been how much exercise do we need, but how little do we require. Yeah, true, very true. Remember that one. And on here. So what if you find yourself, Dorian, spending only 12 to 15 minutes in the gym every 5 days? To hell with what others have thought or done. More muscle is what you're after. Set a new and higher standard of bodybuilding excellence. Become the first Mr. Olympia to improve dramatically on an already heavily muscled physique. Be the first to reach the upper limit allowed by his genetic potential.
Given that Mike Mentzer's position was that an ideal routine would stimulate maximum muscle growth with the least amount of exercise possible, the Consolidated Program seems to fit that bill perfectly.
Remember, the issue of volume in anaerobic exercise is a negative factor, as I stated earlier, and that your purpose is not to see how many sets you can do or how long you can endure. Your purpose is to do the precise amount of exercise required to stimulate growth, then get out of the gym, go home, rest, and grow.